During dinner, my son-in-law, Mark, chuckled. "What's it like being a loser?" he asked, his words cutting through the air. Everyone laughed except for me. I just flashed a smile and asked, "How does it feel to know that this so-called loser will no longer be picking up your bills?" The moment I said it, I saw my brother-in-law's face drain of color, and the atmosphere around the dinner table shifted from celebratory to tense. What he did next, though, was something I could never have predicted. Before we go any further, make sure to hit the subscribe button and let us know where you're tuning in from in the comments below. Mark, my son-in-law, leaned back in his chair and swirled his glass of expensive Cabernet, his voice dripping with smugness. Retirement must be nice. No pressure, no deadlines, no real responsibilities. I set down my fork gently, the prime rib on my plate now turning cold. The polished mahogany table, the one I'd helped Carolyn pick out last year, gleamed in the candlelight. My daughter had really outdone herself, celebrating Sheldon's promotion to regional sales manager. "It has its moments," I replied, watching Sheldon gulp another generous sip of the same wine I'd brought as a gift for the occasion. Sheldon leaned back further in his chair, now comfortably seated at the head of the table, where he liked to position himself during family dinners. "Don't get me wrong, you had a decent run as an engineer," he continued, waving his hand dismissively. "But that was, 40 years ago? The world's changed. Everything's digital now. Fast-paced. Takes a younger, sharper mind to really succeed." Carolyn shifted uncomfortably beside me. Her bracelet, the one I'd given her last Christmas, caught the candlelight as she looked down, visibly distressed. Sheldon, not noticing his effect, continued. "When was the last time you built something, accomplished anything that truly mattered?" "Grandpa built me a treehouse last summer," my 9-year-old granddaughter Emma piped up, looking up from her chicken. "That's sweet, honey," Sheldon said, patting Emma's head. "But then," he added, "but Grandpa needs to understand that real men provide for their families through their own hard work. Not everyone can just coast through retirement while others carry the weight." An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. Caroline's nervous laugh broke the tension. "Maybe we should talk about something else. Emma, why don't you tell Grandpa about your piano recital?" But Sheldon wasn't done. The promotion had inflated his ego, and the wine had loosened his tongue. He leaned in. "Actually, I've been thinking," he said, his voice oozing confidence. "Now that I'm making real money, 6 figures, it might be time for everyone to start pulling their own weight." I knew exactly what he meant. 15 years of covering mortgage payments, tuition, car loans, medical bills, watching him spend freely while I quietly picked up the slack. "Take Carolyn, for instance," he went on, motioning toward my daughter. "She's been out of the workforce so long, living off, well, let's call it family charity. Maybe it's time she rejoined the real world." Caroline's face drained of color. She knew, as I did, that their lifestyle had depended entirely on my quiet financial support. The private school uniforms in the mudroom, the lease on Sheldon's BMW, the kitchen renovation they'd done last fall, all made possible because of me. Tommy, my 12-year-old grandson, sensing the tension, asked, "Are we in trouble, Dad?" "No, son," Sheldon answered, glaring at me. "But it's important to understand the difference between earners and dependents, between those who provide and those who—" He looked directly at me, his words sharp. "Those who've given up trying." The insult hung in the air like a bad smell. Carolyn reached for her wine glass, her fingers trembling. The kids exchanged worried glances. Sheldon, emboldened by my silence, leaned forward. "I don't mean to be harsh, Mark, but someone has to ask the hard questions. When was the last time you contributed something meaningful? When did you last feel the satisfaction of earning your own way instead of just existing?" He paused for effect, savoring what he thought was his moment of dominance. Then, with a smug smile, he asked, "How does it feel to be a failure?" The question landed like a punch to the gut. Carolyn gasped. Tommy's fork clattered against his plate. Emma started crying, but I didn't flinch. Instead, I took a slow sip of water, set the glass down carefully, and met Sheldon's gaze. "How does it feel?" I asked, my voice steady. "To know this failure won't be paying your bills anymore?" The blood drained from Sheldon's face as if he'd been struck. Caroline's hand flew to her mouth. The kids stared at their father in confusion as his triumphant expression morphed into one of panic. I continued eating my dinner, cutting each piece of meat deliberately, while the table sat in stunned silence. Outside, the sun had set, and the only sound in the neighborhood was the distant bark of a neighbor's dog. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I wiped my mouth with the linen napkin, stood up, and kissed Emma and Tommy goodbye. "Thanks for dinner, Carolyn. It was delicious." I walked toward the front door, grabbed my coat, and stepped into the cool March evening, leaving behind a family who was just beginning to realize the true cost of 15 years of quiet generosity. The drive home was quiet. My hands were steady on the steering wheel, but inside, a storm was brewing. I pulled into my driveway, the motion sensor light casting long shadows across the front steps. Inside, I hung my coat in the hall closet, then walked directly to my study. The smell of old paper and furniture polish greeted me. I flicked on the brass desk lamp, and its warm light illuminated 15 years of meticulously organized filing cabinets. As a retired engineer, I had kept every receipt, every bank statement, every cancelled check. It was time to see exactly what my so-called failure had cost me. I opened the first drawer labeled 2009 to 2012. The folders were color-coded: blue for mortgage assistance, green for car loans, yellow for school expenses, and red for medical bills. After Martha passed in late 2008, by January 2009, Carolyn was already struggling. I had covered the first mortgage payment assistance of $2,800 in February, and another $2,800 in March. I spread the documents across the desk. $2,800 every month for 180 months, I calculated. $504,000 just for mortgage assistance. Next came the car payments, Sheldon's BMW lease, Caroline's SUV loan, $200 monthly for 8 years. That came to $115,200. The numbers kept adding up. School tuition, medical bills, emergency expenses, everything I had quietly paid over the years. Private school tuition for Tommy and Emma, elite programs with swimming pools and foreign language classes, $24,000 per year. The total for 16 years of schooling was $192,000. Medical insurance premiums, dental work, emergency visits, all added up to $120,000. Then there were the vacations: Disney World, European cruises, ski lodges, Aspen, and of course, the $45,000 I'd quietly forked out for Caroline's kitchen renovation. I sat back in my chair, stunned by the final total: $976,200. Nearly $1 million. For the first time since Martha's funeral, I felt the weight of the promise I made to her. "Don't worry about Carolyn," I whispered to my dying wife. "I'll make sure she's secure." The full cost of that promise was now clear. I had given them nearly $1 million over 15 years, forsaking my own dreams along the way. The small retirement fund, the modest house, the truck that was growing old, all sacrificed for their well being at 10:30 p.m. I made a call to my bank. I'd cancel the automatic payments tomorrow. Then, I'd redirect those funds into my own retirement account. As I hung up, the silence in my house was deafening. It was the silence of a family beginning to understand the true cost of their dependency. Caroline's grateful calls became monthly requests for additional help. Dad, can you cover Emma's dance classes? It's only $200 a month. Dad, the kids need new computers for school. Dad, all vacation rental fell through. Can you help with a different place? The word please disappeared first, then thank you. Finally, even can you became you need to. By 2018, Sheldon had stopped acknowledging my contributions entirely. At neighborhood barbecues, he'd brag about his house renovations, his children's private education, his successful lifestyle. When neighbors complimented his BMW, he'd beam with pride about his smart financial planning. Caroline began defending him over me. When I gently suggested they try managing some expenses independently, she'd respond with irritation. Dad, you don't understand modern family dynamics. Sheldon's under enormous pressure at work. The children have established routines. You can't just disrupt everything because you're feeling unappreciated. Unappreciated. The word hit like a physical blow. Last Christmas, neither of them acknowledged my support. Sheldon gave a toast about his hard work providing for the family. Caroline posted social media photos of their expensive gifts with hashtags about blessed family success. I'd sat in my small living room looking at their thank you cards from 2009, wondering when gratitude had calcified into entitlement. Now sitting in the gathering dusk, I understood what Martha would have wanted. Not endless enabling, but dignity. Not unlimited generosity, but respect. Outside, shadows stretched longer across my front yard, and somewhere in the distance, a phone began ringing. 3 days passed like watching dominoes fall in slow motion. Monday morning brought the first bank notifications. Caroline called at 9:47 a.m., her voice thin with panic. Dad, they're saying our mortgage payment failed. There's a $75 penalty fee. The bank wants $2,875 by tomorrow, or they'll start foreclosure proceedings. I said nothing. The silence stretched until she hung up. By noon, Sheldon's BMW lease company had left 2 voicemails about their missed $650 payment. Caroline's SUV loan, another $480 monthly, bounced with a $50 penalty. Their homeowner's insurance lapsed at 3p. When the automatic payment failed, Tuesday brought deeper water. Caroline called again, this time with Sheldon shouting in the background. We can't cover everything. Her voice cracked. I applied at Target, Walmart, 3 restaurants. Even if I get here immediately, they're offering $12 an hour. That's barely $2,000 a month before taxes. For the first time in 15 years, she was doing mathematics on her survival. Wednesday afternoon, I drove past Centura Academy during pickup time. Tommy and Emma stood with other children whose tuition payments had cleared. Their school had called Caroline that morning. $4,800 due immediately, or the kids would withdraw by Friday. That evening, my neighbor, Mrs. Payne, mentioned hearing raised voices from Caroline's house during her walk. Seems like financial troubles, she said sadly. The young man was yelling something about credit cards buying maxed out. Thursday brought the crescendo. Caroline's third call came at 2:15 p.m. Dad, please. I went to 5 interviews yesterday. McDonald's, a cleaning company, a grocery store. They all want references from recent employers. I haven't worked since 2009. Her voice had lost its demanding edge, replaced by something I hadn't heard in years. Humility. Sheldon tried to pay the mortgage yesterday. Our account has $3,000. The payment is $2,875. He paid it. Then realized we couldn't cover utilities, groceries, or gas for the cars. He had to call the bank back and cancel the payment. I remained silent. The BMW lease company scheduled a repossession for Monday. They're taking Sheldon's car unless we pay $650 plus a $200 reinstatement fee. More excellence. Dad. Her voice became very small. I think we're going to lose everything. Yes, I said quietly. You probably are. She started crying then. Deep, painful sobs that reminded me of her teenage heartbreaks. But this wasn't teenage drama. This was adult consequence. Friday morning, I sat in my study reviewing my redirected financial plan. Those monthly payments I'd been making would go toward the European river cruise Martha and I had planned before she got sick. The Italian cooking classes. The photography workshop in Scotland. My phone rang at 11:30. Sheldon this time. Mark, his voice had known of its previous arrogance. We need to talk. We've talked. No, we need to really talk as adults about how we can fix this situation. You mean how I can't fix your situation? A long pause. Yes, that's exactly what I mean. At least he was finally being honest. Come over Sunday afternoon, all of you. Bring the children. Should we? What should we prepare to discuss? Reality, I said, and hung up. Outside my window, the first spring flowers were beginning to push through the soil. Monday morning, my friend Dave from the hardware store called with concern in his voice. Mark, I had something troubling yesterday. Sheldon was at Murphy's bar telling folks you cut off your family without warning. Said you're forcing the kids out of private school out of spite. I set down my coffee cup slowly. What exactly did he say? Called it financial abandon of innocent grandchildren. Used a lot of business terms. Made it sound like you're punishing Carolyn for something petty. By Tuesday, Carolyn had called my late wife's sister, Janet. Janet phoned me that afternoon. Her voice tight with disapproval. Carolyn says, you've abandoned them in their time of greatest need. She was crying. Mark said, the children don't understand why Grandpa doesn't love them anymore. Did she mention the $976,000 I've given them over 15 years? Long silence. She what? Nearly $1 million, Janet. Mortgage payments, car loans, insurance, school tuition, medical bills. Vacations every month for 15 years. That can't be right. I have documentation for every penny. The next morning, Emma called me. Her small voice was carefully rehearsed. Grandpa, Mommy says we might lose our house because you didn't want to help us anymore. Did we do something wrong? My heart twisted, but I kept my voice gentle. You didn't do anything wrong, sweetheart. Would you like me to pick you up for ice cream this afternoon? Mommy says, you might say no to everything now. I never say no to ice cream with my granddaughter. That afternoon at Dairy Queen, Emma scripted. Sadness melted away as she told me about her art project. When I dropped her off, Carolyn watched from the window with calculating eyes. Wednesday brought a more direct confrontation. Nancy Morrison, a longtime neighbor, approached me at the grocery store. Mark Bennett, I'm ashamed of you. Her voice carried across 3 aisles. Cutting off your own daughter when she needs you most. What would Martha think? I faced her calmly. Martha would think 15 years and nearly $1 million was generous enough. NY's righteous anger faltered. $1 million $976, $200, mortgage assistance, car payments, school tuition, insurance premiums, medical bills, vacation expenses. Would you like to see the bank records? Other shoppers had stopped to listen. NY's face reened. Carolyn never mentioned. Carolyn mentions very little about what she receives. Nancy only what she wants. That evening, Dave called again. Sheldon was back at Murphy's tonight. Tried the same routine, but Bill Henderson was there. Remember Bill? Hassled them that BMW 3 years ago. What did Bill say? Asked how Sheldon afforded a $60,000 car on his salary. When Sheldon started deflecting, Bill mentioned he remembered you co-signing the lease. The whole bar got quiet real fast. Thursday morning brought a call from my old engineering colleague. Tom. Heard some interesting gossip at the coffee shop. Also heard your side from Dave. Mind if I ask you directly? Did you really support them for 15 years? Every month since Martha died. And they never acknowledged it. Last Christmas, Sheldon gave a toast about his hard work providing for the family. Carolyn posted photos of their expensive gifts on social media, with hashtags about blessed family. Success. Tom whistled low. That's cold, Mark. Friday evening, I was watering my front garden when Mrs. Payne approached. Mr. Bennett, my daughter heard something at school pickup today. Parents talking about family drama. She said, some people are questioning the story your son-in-law has been telling. I continued watering my roses. People have a right to their opinions. She also said, you've been very generous to those children over the years. Very generous. I love my grandchildren. Of course you do. That's never been in question. Saturday morning, Carolyn called, her voice shrill with desperation. People asking questions, Dad. Uncomfortable questions about money and timelines. And documentation. You need to stop spreading lies about us. I haven't spread anything, Carolyn. I've simply answered questions honestly when asked directly. You're destroying our reputation in this community. I'm not destroying anything. I'm just no longer subsidizing the creation of false ones. The line went dead. Sunday arrived with clear skies and the knowledge that by afternoon we'd all be sitting in my living room again, but this time the community would be watching. The family meeting never happened. By Monday morning, reality had other plans. Dave called me at 8:15 a.m. Mark saw a foreclosure notice posted on Caroline's front door yesterday evening. Big official thing from the county. Is it my coffee down? Carefully. 30 days. They had 30 days to pay $8,625. 3 months of missed mortgage payments plus penalties and legal fees. Tuesday morning brought more changes. Caroline's bevy was gone from their driveway, replaced by a 10-year-old Honda Civic. Mrs. Payne mentioned seeing Sheldon at the Honda dealership looking defeated while Carolyn filled out paperwork. The monthly savings must be significant, she observed. That BMW lease was probably costing them nearly $1,000 monthly. Wednesday afternoon, I stopped by the grocery store and saw Carolyn behind the checkout counter. She wore a blue vest with a name tag, scanning items with mechanical precision. When Mrs. Patterson approached her lane, Caroline's face flushed deep red. Carolyn, dear, I didn't know you were working here. Started Monday, Carolyn replied, not meeting her eyes. Paper or plastic? Her shift ended at 6 p.m. I watched through the window as she walked to the old Honda. Her shoulders slumped with exhaustion. That evening, Tommy called me. Grandpa, Mum, and Dad are fighting again. Really loud this time. About what, buddy? Money. Dad said Mum's job doesn't pay enough to matter. Mum said Dad never made enough either. Then they said mean things about you. What kind of mean things? That you ruined everything on purpose. But then Mum started crying and said, maybe they earned it themselves. Thursday morning brought the sound of raised voices from their house during my morning walk. Through the thin walls, I caught fragments. 8 hours on my feet for peanuts. Never appreciated what we had. Your pride got us into this mess. 15 years of handouts, and now the arguing stopped abruptly, replaced by the sound of a door slamming and Sheldon's Honda starting up. That afternoon, Emma visited me, her usual cheerfulness replaced by worry. Grandpa, why is everything different now? I settled her at my kitchen table with cookies and milk. What feels different, sweetheart? Mum's always tired and sad. Dad gets angry about everything. They talk about losing our house. Tommy heard them say we might have to change schools. How do you feel about that? Scared, but also she hesitated. Also like maybe they should have said thank you more. Out of the mouths of babes. Friday evening, I was reading in my study when my doorbell rang. Sheldon stood on my porch alone, his corporate confidence completely absent. His usual pressed shirt was wrinkled, his tie loosened, his face showing exhaustion. I'd never seen before. Mark, I need to talk to you. Just the two of us, Manto Man. I invited him into my living room, the same room where he demanded I restore payments just 2 weeks ago. He sat heavily in the chair, his hands clasped tightly between his knees. The foreclosure is real. 30 days. Caroline's working 40 hours a week for $13.50 an hour. After taxes, that's maybe $1,100 a month. I'm bringing home about $5,800 monthly. The mortgage alone is $2,875. He looked up at me with something approaching humility. We can't make it work. Not even close. We never could. Could we? Without you, I mean. No, I said quietly. You never could. I've been thinking about something you said about earning respect versus inheriting it. His voice cracked slightly. I never earned anything, did I? The house, the cars, the kids' schools. None of it was really mine. What do you want from me, Sheldon? I want to know if there's a way back from this. Not back to how things were, but forward to something better. Outside, the street lights were beginning to flicker on as darkness settled over our suburban neighborhood. Saturday afternoon I was organizing my financial documents when the doorbell rang. Carolyn stood on my porch in her blue grocery store vest, her face stir with tears of exhaustion. Dad, please. We need to talk about Tommy and Emma. She looked different, smaller somehow. The entitled confidence I'd watched grow over 15 years had crumbled, leaving behind the frightened daughter I remembered from Martha's funeral. Invited her into the living room. She collapsed into the same chair where Sheldon had sat the night before, her hands shaking as she pulled off her work name tag. 4 days, she whispered. 4 days until they complete the foreclosure. Tommy keeps asking if we're really going to lose the house. Emma had nightmares last night about moving to a strange place. What do you want from me, Carolyn? I want my children to have a stability. I want them to finish the school year with their friends. I want Emma to sleep through the night without crying about leaving her bedroom. She looked up at me with eyes that held no trace of manipulation, only raw maternal desperation. I've been working 40 hours a week on my feet, scanning groceries for people who used to be my friends. Yesterday, Mrs. Henderson came through me line and asked why I was working there. I wanted to crawl under the counter and disappear. But you, DIDN single quotes T.no. I smiled and asked paper or plastic because I finally understand what work means, what earning means, what you've been trying to teach us. She wiped her nose with a tissue from her purse. Sheldon told me about your conversation last night. He said you asked if there was a way forward. There might be, but it would require significant changes from both of you. Tell me, I leaned forward. In my chair. I'll pay Tommy and Emma's school tuition directly to Centura Academy. I'll cover their clothing, medical expenses, sports activities, and music lessons. I'll establish college funds for both of them. Caroline's face brightened with the first hope I'd seen in weeks. But I continued, I won't pay your mortgage, car payments, insurance, or any adult lifestyle expenses. You and Sheldon will live within your actual means. Period. We can do that. We'll downsize, find a smaller place. There's more. I want public acknowledgement of the 15 years and $976,000 I've provided. I want sincere public apologies for the disrespect and entitlement. I want genuine gratitude, not just when you need something. Caroline's face crumpled. Sheldon will never agree to public apologies. His pride. Then his pride is more important than his children's stability. We sat in silence while she processed this reality. What kind of public acknowledgement? A letter to the community newspaper explaining how I've supported your family and thanking me for my generosity. An honest Facebook post about 15 years of financial help. Face-to-face apologies to the people you've lied to over the past 2 weeks. And if we do this, all of it, your children will have educational security and grandfather's love. You'll have a relationship with me based on honesty and mutual respect. But you'll also have a lifestyle limited by what you and Sheldon actually earn. Caroline covered her face with her hands. I don't know if I can convince him. You have 48 hours to decide. After that, the offer expires. She stood slowly, her grocery vest wrinkled from the long day. At the door, she turned back. Dad, thank you for still caring about Tommy and Emma. I never stopped caring about any of you, Caroline. I just stopped enabling you. After she drove away, in the old Honda, I sat in my living room watching the evening news. Somewhere across town, a very difficult conversation was about to begin. Caroline's Honda pulled into their driveway at 5:30 p.m. Through my neighbor Dave's later account, I learned how the evening unfolded. Sheldon was heating leftover pizza when Caroline entered the kitchen, still wearing her grocery vest. He looked up from the microwave, noting a red-rimmed eyes and exhausted posture. Where have you been? Your shift ended at 3. I went to see Dad. Their microwave beeped in the silence that followed. Sheldon pulled out the steaming pizza, set it on the counter, and turned to face his wife fully. You went behind my back after everything. We discussed about handling this together. We're out of time, Sheldon. 4 days until foreclosure. The children are terrified. I had to try something. Caroline sank into a kitchen chair, pulling off her name tag with trembling fingers. He's willing to help, but there are conditions. What kind of conditions? He'll pay for Tommy and Emma's school, clothes, activities, medical expenses. He'll set up college funds for both of them. Sheldon's face brightened. That's fantastic. When does he restart the mortgage payments? He doesn't. We have to live on what we actually earn. The brightness faded instantly. That's impossible. You know our expenses. He wants something else too. Carolina's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. Public apologies. Acknowledgement of the 15 years and $976,000 he supported us. Sheldon's face went white, then red. He wants me to humiliate myself, publicly admit I've been what? A charity case. Sheldon. He spent nearly $1 million on us. $1 million. Do you understand what that means? It means he chose to help family. That's what fathers do. Caroline stood up slowly, her grocery vest wrinkled and stained. No, that's what saints do. And reiterated him like an ATM. From upstairs came the sound of Tommy's voice calling down. Mum, Dad, why are you yelling? Both parents stopped, realizing their voices had risen. Emma appeared at the top of the stairs in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. Are you fighting about Grandpa again? Caroline climbed the stairs to comfort her daughter, while Sheldon paced the kitchen, his hands clenched into fists. When Caroline returned 20 minutes later, she found him staring at the foreclosure notice on the counter. I won't do it, he said, without looking up. I won't stand in front of our neighbors and admit I'm a failure who couldn't provide for his own family. Then what's your solution? Where are we going to live? Where will the children go to school? We'll figure something out. Get a loan. File for bankruptcy. Something. anything but crawling to your father and begging forgiveness for imaginary sins. Carolyn pulled out her phone and opened the calculator app. Okay, let's figure it out. Our combined monthly income is $6,900. The mortgage is $2,875. That leaves $40.25 for everything else. She continued typing numbers. Car payment for the Honda $350. Insurance $250. Utilities $300. Groceries $600. Gas $200. That's $1,600, leaving us $26.25. 25. See, we can make it work. I haven't added the children's expenses yet. Tommy's baseball league $120 monthly. Emma's dance classes $80. Both kids' school supplies, clothes, medical co-pays, birthday parties, Christmas gifts. Caroline's voice cracked. Sheldon, we can't afford our children. Through the thin walls, Tommy's voice drifted down again. Mom, Emma's crying. She says we're going to be homeless. Caroline looked at her husband with eyes that held no trace of the entitled woman Woe had demanded her father restore their payments 2 weeks ago. We have 36 hours to decide. Dad's offer expires Monday at noon. She walked upstairs to comfort her children, leaving Sheldon alone in the kitchen with the foreclosure notice and a calculator. That couldn't make their impossible mathematics work. Monday morning at 10:15, the Honda pulled into my driveway, carrying all 4 of them. Through my front window, I watched Sheldon emerge from the passenger seat, with the defeated posture of a man who'd spent the night staring at ceilings. Carolyn knocked on my door, flanked by Tommy and Emma in their school clothes. Sheldon stood behind them, his business shirt wrinkled, high size rimmed with exhaustion. Dad, we need to accept your offer. All of it. I invited them into my living room. The children settled on my couch while Carolyn took the same chair she'd occupied Saturday. Sheldon remained standing, his hands clasped behind his back like a defendant awaiting sentencing. The bank called this morning. Carolyn continued. Foreclosure completes at 3:00 p.m. unless we pay $8,625. We don't have it. Emma tugged on my sleeve. Grandpa, are we really going to lose our house? Not if I can help it, sweetheart. Sheldon cleared his throat. Mark, I need to say some things. You act to my mantle, studying the wedding photo of Martha and me, then turned to face his family. 15 years ago you offered to help us temporarily. I took that help and turned it into a permanent arrangement without ever acknowledging what you were sacrificing. His voice cracked slightly. I told people the house renovations were from a success at work. I bragged about the cars like I'd earned them. I let Tommy and Emma think their grandfather was just being nice, instead of being their actual provider. Carolina reached over and took Emma's hand. Dad, I owe you apologies too. I took your generosity and treated it like inheritance. Like something I deserved instead of something you chose to give. You paid our mortgage for 15 years, Sheldon added. $54,000. You paid our car loans, insurance, school tuition, medical bills, vacations, Christmas gifts, birthday parties, dance classes, baseball leagues. Tommy looked up with wide eyes. Grandpa paid for my baseball. Grandpa paid for everything. Carolyn said quietly. Almost $1 million over 15 years. Emma's small voice cut through heavy air. Why didn't you tell us? Caroline's face wrinkled. Because we were ashamed. Not of Grandpa's help, but of how we acted like we didn't need it. I leaned forward in my chair. If I help you keep the house today, things will be different. I'll pay Tommy and Emma school tuition directly to Centura Academy. I'll cover their medical expenses, clothing, activities, and college funds. But I won't pay your mortgage, car payments, or any adult lifestyle expenses. You'll live on what you actually earn. Sheldon nodded slowly. We understand. There's more. He want public acknowledgement. A letter to the community newspaper thanking me for 15 years of support. Social media posts expressing genuine gratitude. Face-to-face apologies to the neighbors you've lied to. When? Carolyn asked Dot this week before. Saturday. Sheldon's jaw tightened, but he nodded again. What else? Monthly family dinners here. Not to report your finances, but to maintain proper relationships. To remember that family means respect, not entitlement. I stood and walked to my desk, pulling out my checkbook. I'm going to call First National and arrange an emergency payment. But this is the last mortgage payment I ever make for you. After today, you sink or swim on your own income. As I dialed the bank, I heard Emma whisper to her mother, "Oh, we're going to be okay now." Caroline's voice was soft but certain. Yes, sweetheart. We're going to be just fine. For the first time in 15 years, I believe she was right. 3 months later, on the 3rd Saturday of June, they arrived for our monthly family meeting. At exactly 2 p.m. Carolyn had been promoted to shift supervisor at the grocery store, earning $15.50 an hour. Sheldon had learned to balance their budget without expecting miracles. Grandpa, Emma bounded through my front door in her soccer uniform, grass stains on her knees and a medal around her neck. Look what I won at the tournament. That's wonderful, sweetheart. Tell me about the winning goal. While Emma regaled me with athletic heroics, Tommy showed me his report card, straight A's, and a note from his teacher, praising his improved attitude and confidence. Carolyn set a manila folder on my coffee table. Dad, here's this month's budget review. We're covering the mortgage, utilities, groceries, and car payment entirely from our combined salaries. We even started Asmal Emergency Fund. Sheldon, who 3 months ago couldn't look me in the eye, now contributed to our discussions with genuine respect. Mark, I wanted to ask your advice about a potential promotion opportunity at work. The regional director position might open up next quarter. What would it involve? More responsibility, better salary, but also travel. I wanted to make sure Carolini and I could handle the children's schedules if I'm away occasionally. I opened my own folder organized with typical engineer precision. Tommy's soccer league fee, paid directly to Colorado Youth Sports. Emma's piano lessons, handled through Mountain Music Academy. Both children's dental checkups are scheduled for next month, covered under my family plan. Carolyn smiled, a genuine expression I hadn't seen in years. Dad, I can't thank you enough for keeping their lives stable while we figured out how to be actual adults. Speaking of being adults, Sheldon added, we completed the community service hours Judge Martinez assigned after our public apology letters. Volunteering off food bank was enlightening. We met families genuinely struggling, not just living beyond their means like we were. Emma tugged on my sleeve. Grandpa, can we show you the thank you cards we made? Both children produced construction paper cards decorated with glitter and heartfelt messages. Tommy's read, "Thank you for taking care of us, even when Mom and Dad forgot to say please." Emma's was simpler. "I love AO, Grandpa. You're the best." These weren't coached expressions or guilt-driven apologies. These were authentic words of children who finally understood what love and security actually meant. There's something else, Carolyn said quietly. Sheldon and I have been talking about eventually buying a smaller house. Something we can actually afford on our own income. Not immediately, but maybe in 2 years when we've built more savings. That sounds like good planning. Sheldon nodded. We want to prove we can stand on our own feet. Not because we don't appreciate your help with the kids, but because we need to respect what you've already given us. As the afternoon wound down, Tommy asked the question that summarized everything. Grandpa, Are you proud of us, Mo? I looked around my living room at my daughter, who had learned the value of work, my son-in-law, who had swallowed his pride for his children's sake, and my grandchildren, who finally understood gratitude. Yes, Tommy, I'm very proud of all of you. They left as the sun was setting, Emma's hand in my knee as I walked them to their car, the same Honda that had replaced the BMW. But somehow it looked less like a downgrade and more like a choice made with wisdom. Watching their tail lights disappear down my street, I realized Martha would have been proud too. Not of the money I'd spent, or the control I'd finally asserted, but of the family we'd become when respect replaced entitlement, and love replaced. Exploitation. The revenge I'd sought wasn't punishment. It was transformation. And sometimes that's the sweetest justice of all. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.